What's going on, guys? Welcome back to D-Life HD. This is Victor, and today we're going to be reviewing the latest installment in the Paper Mario franchise, the Origami King. So without any further delay, let's jump right into it.
Switch it up. Switch it up. I was a worker, had to upgrade to a boss. I had to switch it up. Used to live in the hood, but had to upgrade to a low. I had to switch it up.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, like we do with all our reviews, let's start off with the game modes. Paper Mario games have always been very story-focused. This is true with the first installment on the 64, the other installments following on the GameCube, the Wii, and the Wii U systems. Story has always been at the root of Paper Mario games. Now, the gameplay and mechanics, those have changed some over time, but the story elements in the game have been something that have been prominent through all installments in the franchise. So when it comes to game modes with this one, there really aren't any game modes but the main story. That's the appeal of these games. So you jump in, you have a story to follow along, and once you complete that, you can start another profile and do it again. It's a very classic type of game, and it's an JRPG of some sort, but more toned down for maybe a younger audience or an audience that doesn't play turn-based or RPG type games as much. So you're there for the story, and you're there for the main core gameplay. Moving on, let's talk about the UI and graphics. The graphics in this game are stunning. This is one of the highest and most praised features of this game. Paper Mario games have always been pretty good looking for the consoles they're on, but this latest installment, wow, it is absolutely gorgeous. They really play heavily into the actual paper aspect, whereas more of the original games, they were mainly called paper and told from a storybook format, whereas this latest game, like some of the newer ones, very much leans into an arts and craft type style of game, similar to how we saw with Yoshi's Crafted World and Kirby's Epic Yarn. There's different things like cardboard and household items that really lean into this paper aspect of things. And whereas this is a change to format compared to the original games, and some people don't like this, I personally think that they've done a really good job at polishing this style of paper type graphics, and everything is very shiny and very crisp, and it's clear that the graphics is one of the places that this game shines most. And I don't mean that as a pun, I mean that actually it does a really good job here. When it comes to UI, it's pretty simple. There's not a lot of menu going through in this game like a lot of other heavier real JRPGs. You have your main menu and your main item area and your inventory, that kind of thing, where you can manage what they have as like badges, and you can manage your weapons. And so overall the UI is very fleshed out and simplified for a younger audience. Moving along here, let's jump right into the main controls and gameplay. So the objective with this game is to follow a very linear type story, but it's not just following the story that this game shines. You can actually break off and do other side quests of some kind, and there's always something to do in every area. The gameplay is mostly centered around going after these different ribbons that you're there to unfree Peach's castle, but alongside you'll find different toads. Toads you can collect, and the more you collect, the more that they can help you in battle. You'll free other toads that will go back to the main hub of the base. Your hub base, and there you can they'll open new item shops where you can get different badges and weapons of certain kinds. There are different side quests, like in the first area, where in order to progress, you need to go around and find these different orbs to get into a dungeon of some sort. So the gameplay here is pretty fleshed out, but overall, the battle system, which is where most Paper Mario games really have their roots in, the battle system here is extremely lackluster. It's centered around turn-based mechanic, and I don't mean that as turn-based as a player goes and then an enemy goes. I mean that as there is physically rings around Mario, and a lot of the main objective with the battle is not necessarily to plan out your strategy well with your different items, but rather to complete a puzzle. There are multiple rings that you can move in different directions, and your goal is to center up the enemies in one particular area, and if you center them up correctly and complete the puzzle, you do even more damage. Now, this sounds like something that's very interesting, something that took a lot of thought to develop, and I don't doubt that it did, but overall it wears out its welcome. It's fun the first couple times, and it does a good job of explaining how it works, but eventually it seems like it's the same puzzles over and over again, and there's no leveling up in this game like most RPGs. Instead, battles just seem kind of useless. This was something that the previous game, Color Splash, struggled with very heavily. And I'd say it's less so here, but it's still present. I don't feel the urgency to go out and fight a battle to level up. Instead, they just feel like a pain, something that's in the way. And there are a lot of enemies around. Thankfully, at the end of each dungeon, you'll come across these certain heart pieces that will level up your health and your strength. And once you do that, lower tiered enemies become unbattleable if in some sense. If you just hit them with your hammer, it's actually real time and not turn based. And so that's a good mechanic. So if you're going backtracking through these areas to complete old secrets, you won't necessarily have to fight every enemy. You can rather just kill them on the spot rather than having to do these tedious battles over and over again. Alright, let's move on to the music and sound. Recent Paper Mario games have been very centered around a more upbeat jazz style of instrumentation. Now, I prefer the synthesized computer MIDI songs of the past, but I am a huge fan of jazz in video games. Things like Persona really use this genre to add atmosphere to their game. And I think that Paper Mario does a really good job at taking advantage of that genre and that style and making it feel very at home. Jazz is a very down-to-earth genre as it is. It's very out of the garage type thing. People can get together and just play jazz music. And that's how the game feels to me. It's centered around very at-home things. Craft materials and paper and that sort of thing. So I feel like the two go hand in hand pretty well. That said, the orchestration is really good in the game, and overall they've done a good job with the soundtrack, but eventually it also wears out its welcome, and it doesn't seem as innovative as previous Mario and Nintendo franchise games in general. They always want to do something new with the music. Like Breath of the Wild, for example. It took all these iconic Zelda themes and put them out as just simple, chilling piano solo pieces. And I feel like, whereas jazz music does fit it pretty well, they could have done something more here. The sound of the game is something that you'd expect from a Mario game. They use a lot of Mario sound effects and a lot of voice clips that we've heard previously. I can tell that some new voice clips have been made, specifically for Luigi at the beginning. They did a good job at throwing some humor in there and using just different new voice clips for these characters we know and love. Alright, let's move on to the story. Before I jump into the story head on, I just want to say that this game is very witty and very funny. I found myself actually laughing out loud multiple times, especially towards the beginning. The characters are just very well written, and it's just overall sarcastic. Everybody has something funny or something clever to say, including all of these toads that you'll find around the world. Every single one of them has a pun or just something to bring to the table in the realm of humor. So they've done a really good job at making the dialogue interesting and worthy of reading. And I'd say if that dialogue wasn't in there, this game would struggle even more. Because what's good about Paper Mario games, it's a balance of combat and then conversation. Similar to what I said with Outer Worlds, actually. And the interaction with these characters, even characters that are bland, like just a regular Toad, every character feels like they have personality. And I think that plays into the story pretty well. That said, let's jump into the story itself. The story with this one is the Origami King has come to Toad Town and started to fold up Bowser's minions, and also has folded up Peach and stolen her castle and put it at the top of a mountain. And it's tied up together, like I mentioned earlier, with these different ribbons. So your story objective here is to go out and cut these ribbons so you can finally get to Peach's castle at the end of the game. Overall, this is not a super complex story, but it does have some dark underlying tones. The Origami King himself seems pretty evil, especially for Mario standards. This is something that the older Paper Mario games did really well, having unique original villains. Bowser's an awesome character, but when it comes to RPGs and trying to make a new story every time, we can't just do Bowser over and over again. If the story is one of the main focuses, whereas like platforming Mario games, the story is not the main focus, we need to have good villains. I think they've done a really good job at creating this Origami King and chalking him up to be this evil character. Alright, I think I've babbled long enough. Let's go ahead and give this game a final rating. Now, it's lackluster in a lot of places. It does not really hold up to the standard of the old Paper Mario games. But, is it fun? And will a new audience find it appealing? Absolutely. Not to mention, it's pretty gorgeous of a game, and the soundtrack plays in pretty well. Now, I like to lump Nintendo games, specifically first-party games, kind of on the same scale. And if Breath of the Wild and Fire Emblem, Three Houses are 10 out of 10 games, I'm afraid I can't score this Paper Mario game anything higher than a 6.5. So I am going to give this Paper Mario game a 6.5 out of 10. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Let us know in the comments down below what you thought of this video. We love talking to you guys. Remember to like and subscribe for more videos like these. Also, don't forget to check the description for our link to our community Discord. Lastly, check out our Twitter account for gameplay on the latest releases. But most importantly of all, remember to always stay one up.